You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We talked about this post-game against Clarion, all right? Syracuse basketball has a true floor general leading this offense this season, and that is Jaquan Carlos, 6-foot senior point guard, a Hofstra transfer from this offseason. Last year, he averaged 10 points and 6 assists. He led his conference in assists per game and is also a 2-time all-conference defender. All right? I know I said not to read too much into the starting lineup. Again, right? Coach Autry said he's basically putting these lineups in a blender in the exhibition and seeing what sticks maybe for the regular season. Jaquan Carlos started the exhibition game at point guard, and I am fairly confident that that will hold true on Monday as well. Very similar to J.J. Starling. I think that's going to be your starting backcourt duo on Monday night against Lemoyne. Here's what I'll say about Carlos, okay? What he did in the exhibition game is confirm what we were told about him. I'm not saying he's going to play up to how he played against Lemoyne, but think about what we were told about Jaquan Carlos this offseason when he transferred. When he transferred over here, what were we told about him? We were told that he is one of the best passers, he becomes maybe one of the best passers in the ACC, if not the country. Well, didn't he start the game with like 4 assists in 4 minutes in that exhibition game, right? He can pass. He's a floor general, right? We were told that he's a pretty good defender, right? His resume says he's a 2-time all-conference defender. I know it's the CAA. You still got to be a good defender overall to be an all-conference defender. I don't care what conference you're in. It's Division I. It's mid-major, but still, you got to be a good defender. And, well, he had 3 steals in the game. One of them led to a Donnie Freeman highlight reel dunk. I'm not saying he's going to have 3 assists every game. I'm not saying he's going to have 10 assists every single game. That's what he had against Clarion, right? Clarion. But he essentially confirmed the stereotypes and the narratives that we had about Jaquan Carlos before. He confirmed it. What type of player is he? He's clearly not a scoring point guard, even though he can score. That was also something we were told about him, right? He's not going to look for his own shot. He's not going to. I mean, how often did he do that against Clarion? Rarely, if ever. He still scored 14 points. But for the most part, he is looking to set up his teammates. And I think that's a really good thing for Syracuse basketball. We were told that he can score, but he's not going to look for his own shot. We were told he's an excellent passer. I think we can all agree he was an excellent passer on Saturday. We were told that he can defend. He defended at a high level. And by the way, he didn't have a turnover. There were no complaints about Jaquan Carlos in that exhibition game. He was exactly what we thought he was going to be. Again, is he always going to have 14 points and 10 assists every single game? No. I highly doubt he averages 14 and 10 this season. If he averages 14 and 10 this season combined with their roster, they're not just going to make the tournament. They're going to be a top 5 seed in the tournament. Okay? I'm not expecting 14 and 10 from Jaquan Carlos, but can he do 10 and 6 just like he did last season at Hofstra? Sure. I can totally see that coming. He's clearly a different point guard than what Syracuse has had in the past, and specifically in the last couple of seasons. It's not a knock on Judah Mintz again. I thought about this comparison while prepping for this podcast that every point guard is different, and the one that Syracuse has is a true floor general type point guard. Think about these 3 all-time great point guards in the NBA. Forget college for a second. Let's go to the NBA, right? I'm going to name you 3 all-time great point guards. I don't care where you rank them on your all-time list. I'm going to give you 3 point guards who will be in the Basketball Hall of Fame, okay? Steph Curry, Chris Paul, and Russell Westbrook. They're all 3 point guards. They all play completely differently. And you can argue one is better than the other or this guy, that guy, okay? But they're all excellent players. They're all Hall of Fame players. Steph Curry, I mean, he's unique in his own right. He can shoot the lights out. He's the greatest shooter of all time. Chris Paul is very, honestly, Jaquan Carlos is kind of, not going to say has the ability of Chris Paul, but it's kind of on that floor general, good defender, right? That's what he is. Chris Paul was at his best when he was scoring 17 points and getting you 15 assists, not when he's scoring 25 points and getting you 4 assists, right? And then you have Russell Westbrook, who, honestly, if you think about the comparisons, again, not necessarily ability, just kind of like an archetype. Well, Judah Mintz was a slashing point guard just like Russell Westbrook. When Russell Westbrook was in his heyday, he was a slashing point guard. He could rebound. He could pass because he had the ball all the time in his hands. Wasn't the greatest shooter. Sounds like Judah Mintz to me. That's what Judah Mintz was last year, at least at Syracuse, right? Jaquan Carlos, I think talent for talent isn't better than Judah Mintz. But he does bring something that Judah Mintz did not. Judah Mintz was an ISO scoring type point guard. He was kind of like your Russell Westbrook mold. Jaquan Carlos is kind of like your Chris Paul mold. Again, not comparing ability, comparing an archetype. Jaquan Carlos can pass. He can defend. He's not going to look for his own shot, but he can score a little bit. He can shoot the ball at a relatively decent level. Whereas Judah Mintz was very ball dominant. He would still get assists because he had the ball all the time in his hands. And he would oftentimes try to attack the rim. That's what he was good at. He was amazing at getting to the free throw line. So it's a different type of offense led by Jaquan Carlos, but I think it can be successful for Syracuse basketball. We saw a glimpse of that against Clarion on Saturday. So I'm really liking this front court overall, at least from the starters. JJ Starling, if you can get the second half version of him, they're going to make the NCAA tournament with the rest of their personnel if they can obviously perform as expected. Jaquan Carlos, exactly what we were told. Great passer, great defender. He can score a little, can shoot a little. Good free throw shooter, by the way, too, Jaquan Carlos. Different, completely different than what Judah Mintz has been the last 2 years. It's not a knock on Judah Mintz, just a completely different type of player than Judah was. And I think for this team and for the personnel that they have, Jaquan Carlos fits a lot better than what maybe Judah Mintz would have fit this season. Now, we've gone over the starters on the Syracuse basketball backcourt, the projected starters, rather. Coming up, let's talk about the backups and who can be the most impactful backups for Syracuse basketball this season.